Welcome, dear listener, to another quiet night together. Tonight, we'll take you deep into the stone halls, narrow staircases, and heavy labour of a medieval castle, but not as a noble or a knight. No, tonight, you step into the life of a castle servant. You will walk the cold corridors before dawn, feel the sting of icy water on your hands, smell the smoke and grease of the kitchens, and hear the whispered rumours in the shadowed halls. You'll carry the burdens they carried, endure the struggles they endured, and discover the small human moments of connection and meaning that kept them going, even when history forgot their names. As you drift through this immersive story, let your body soften, your breath slow, and your mind settle. This is a space to let go, to listen, and to rest. Before we begin, I invite you to like this video if you enjoy these calming, sleep-friendly journeys, and leave a comment below sharing which time or era you'd love us to explore next. Now, get comfortable. Tuck yourself in. Close your eyes if you like. You deserve a night of deep, peaceful rest. Let's begin. You stand at the edge of the road, mud caking your worn leather shoes, the chill of the early morning seeping through the thin wool of your tunic. Before you rises the castle. It is nothing like the stories you heard as a child, no shining fairy tale fortress glimmering in the sunlight. Instead, it looms grey, heavy, silent, its stone towers clawing at the pale sky, its high walls lined with jagged battlements like the teeth of some giant beast. The smell of wet stone and old wood lingers in the cold air, mingled with the faint sourness of livestock and the faint iron tang of the blacksmith's forge. Your fingers tremble slightly as you adjust the bundle on your back, all that you own wrapped in a coarse sack pressed against your shoulders. A clay cup, a patched blanket, a small wooden cross, its edges worn smooth by years of holding it through dark, uncertain nights. You are here because there is no other choice. Your family's land could not feed you. You are too poor for an apprenticeship, too young to claim a trade, and too alone to remain in the village after your parents passed. So you have come here, to the Lord's castle, where they are always looking for more hands to scrub, to haul, to carry, to clean. The drawbridge creaks faintly as the morning patrol crosses it. You watch the guards march past, their breath rising in white clouds, chainmail faintly rattling with each step. Their eyes don't meet yours. You take a slow breath, tasting the cold on your tongue, and walk forward. The gatehouse swallows you in shadow. You tilt your head back to stare up at the massive iron portcullis, its sharp teeth poised above your head, ready to drop. You feel small, almost insect-like, under its weight. When you pass beneath it, a shiver runs down your spine no from the cold, but from the knowledge that once you step inside, your life will no longer be your own. Inside the courtyard, the castle feels even larger, as if the walls rise higher the further in you go. The clatter of hooves on stone, the sharp bark of a steward giving orders, the rhythmic thump of boots crossing the yardle of it surrounds you. You feel disoriented, dizzy, as if you've stepped into another world. You are led to the servants' entrance, a narrow wooden door tucked behind the stables. Here, the smell is stronger, damp straw, manure, the sour sweat of horses. You wait silently, heart pounding, as the steward looks you over. His eyes are sharp, calculating. You know what he sees: a thin frame, calloused hands, downcast eyes. A body that can work. He says nothing as he scribbles your name in a ledger and waves you forward. The first thing you feel when you step inside is the chill. The stone walls of the castle hold onto the cold like a memory, pressing it into your skin. The air inside smells of smoke and damp earth, a mix of tallow candles, drying herbs, and old stone. You brush your fingers against the rough surface of the wall as you pass, feeling the coldness sink into your fingertips. Other servants move past you, swift and silent. Their faces are pale, eyes lowered, hands busy. They carry baskets of kindling, pitchers of ale, armfuls of linens. You watch them carefully, knowing you'll soon have to copy their movements, learn their rhythms. You are led down a narrow corridor, past thick wooden doors and twisting staircases. The floors beneath your feet are uneven, worn smooth by centuries of passing feet. A drip of water echoes somewhere in the distance. At last, you are shown to the servants' quarters. It's a long, low-ceilinged room, tucked deep within the castle's belly. The air is heavy, musty, filled with the mingled smells of straw, unwashed bodies, and stale breath. Rough wooden bunks line the walls, some draped with thin, tattered blankets. You find a space just a small corner where you can set down your bundle. It's not much, but it's yours now. You sit, feeling the ache in your shoulders, the sting in your feet. You listen to the quiet rustle of other servants settling in, the occasional murmur of low voices, the soft crackle of a dying fire in the hearth. It's strange, you think, how quickly this place feels like a cage. Later, you are given your first instructions. Fetch water from the well. Help sweep the corridors. Assist in the kitchens, peeling roots until your fingers cramp and sting. You are shown the strict schedule. Dawn until dusk, sometimes longer, always longer. There are no hours that belong to you, no moments of rest that are truly free. The steward's voice is sharp in your ears as he explains the rules. Keep your head down, speak only when spoken to, never cross the Lord's family, and above all, do not make mistakes. Mistakes mean punishments. Mistakes mean losing your already meager place here. You nod, your throat dry. You try to commit every instruction to memory, feeling the weight of the expectations already pressing down on you. That night, you lie awake on your bunk, the thin blanket doing little to keep out the cold. You listen to the quiet breathing of the others, the occasional creak of the wooden beams, the distant muffled sounds of the castle above. You wonder if you will ever get used to this. You wonder if you will ever stop missing the open fields, the smell of fresh grass, the sound of birdsong in the morning. Here, there is only stone, only walls, only the constant reminder that you are small, replaceable, invisible. But even as the weight of it settles on your chest, even as your eyes sting with exhaustion, you know that you must survive. Because here, at least, there is food, there is shelter, there is a place, however hard, however cold. And so you pull the blanket tighter, close your eyes, and prepare to rise before the sun. Tomorrow will come early. The castle waits, and you will be ready. You wake to the sound of the bell. It's not loud, not a great clanging tower bell like the one that calls the Lord's family to Mass. No, this is the servant's bell, a small iron thing that dangles from a hook by the kitchens, rung at the edge of dawn by a bleary-eyed boy whose job it is to rise before even you. You feel it before you hear it. The cold. It sinks into your bones before your eyes even open. A slow, creeping chill that curls under the thin blanket, wraps around your ankles, and settles in your chest. The straw mattress under you is damp, the wool blanket rough against your skin. You curl your toes, trying to summon the warmth back into your feet, but they stay stubbornly numb. In the darkness, you can hear the others shifting, coughing softly, groaning as they stir. The room smells of stale sweat, of old hay, of damp stone. Somewhere, a rat scratches faintly in the corner. You squeeze your eyes shut for just a moment longer, feeling the ache in your shoulders, the stiffness in your lower back. You want more than anything to stay where you are, to hold on to just a few more minutes of stillness, of heaviness, of quiet. But the bell rings again, and so you rise. Your breath fogs faintly in the air as you sit up, swinging your legs over the side of the bed. Your tunic, crumpled at the foot of the bunk, feels cold as you pull it over your head, the fabric stiff from yesterday's sweat. You rub your arms briskly, trying to stir some warmth into your skin, but it's no use. The cold clings to you like a second skin. You shuffle to the basin in the corner, where a thin crust of ice has formed over the water. You break it carefully with your fingers, shivering as the icy water bites at your skin. You splash a little onto your face, gasping softly as it shocks you fully awake. There's no time to linger. Outside, the corridors are dim. The torches have burned low overnight, their smoky smell heavy in the air. You tread carefully on the uneven stone, your bare feet slapping softly as you move toward the kitchen. You pass other servants, some younger than you, some much older. Their eyes are hollow with sleep, their mouths set in grim, practiced lines. No one speaks. Words feel too heavy, too sharp this early. There is only the quiet shuffle of feet, the occasional sniffle, the low creak of wood and stone. The castle, at this hour, feels like it's holding its breath. When you reach the kitchen, the heat from the hearth is a small mercy. The fires are low, banked through the night, but they give off just enough warmth that you can thaw your fingers by holding them near the coals. You stand there for a moment longer than you should, eyes half closed, savouring the glow against your skin. But then the cook barks your name, and the moment is gone. The first tasks of the morning are always the same. You fetch water from the courtyard well, your hands chapped and red as you haul up the heavy bucket. You split kindling with the old, worn axe, the cold biting at your fingers each time you grip the handle. You sweep the flagstone floors, the dust rising in soft grey clouds, catching the faint light from the narrow windows. The castle is waking up around you. You hear the stable boys leading horses out to the yard, their hooves clattering on the stone. You hear the soft rustle of the maidservants preparing the ladies' chambers, laying out gowns, shaking out linens. The chapel bell tolls faintly in the distance, calling the priests to their morning prayers. But you are too busy to look up, to listen, to wonder. There is always another task waiting. By the time the sun's pale light begins to creep through the narrow windows, You've already been working for hours. Your arms ache. Your back burns. Your stomach rumbles faintly with hunger, but you know the servant's breakfast won't be served until the Lord's family has eaten. You glance down at your hands, noticing the raw patches along your knuckles, the faint smudge of soot across your wrist. You rub at it absently with your sleeve, but it only smears darker. You look around at the other servants, moving swiftly and efficiently, others slower, more deliberate, all of them caught in the same endless rhythm. You wonder, briefly, how long they've been here. Years? Decades? You wonder if you'll still be here when your hair turns grey. Once, long ago, you imagined castle life as something grand. You pictured glittering halls, noble ladies in silks, feasts laid out on gleaming tables. You pictured music, dancing, laughter. Now, you know the truth. For those who serve, the castle is not a place of beauty. It is a place of cold, of weight, of labour. It is a machine, and you are one of its many, many moving parts. Your life here is measured in buckets hauled, floors scrubbed, meals served, hours endured. And yet, there is something oddly comforting in the routine. In the way the morning unfolds, the way each task follows the next, the way your body knows what to do, even when your mind drifts. You fall into the rhythm, into the steady, silent pulse of castle life. As the sun rises higher, the castle comes alive. The nobles emerge from their chambers, their laughter echoing faintly down the stone corridors. The hounds bark and yip in the yard, their handlers shouting sharp commands. The blacksmith's hammer begins to ring out, a steady, rhythmic clang that fills the morning air. You keep your head down. You move from task to task, hands busy, eyes lowered. You are invisible, and yet everything you do keeps the castle turning. Without you, the fires would not burn, the floors would not shine, the tables would not be set. Without you, the great machine would slow, stumble, falter. It is a strange kind of power. Quiet, unnoticed, but real. By the time the sun reaches its peak, you will have been awake for nearly half a day. But for now, you keep moving. You let the sound of the bell guide you. You let the rhythm of the work carry you forward. You let the quiet pulse of the castle wrap around you like a second skin as you rise before the sun again and again and again. The work begins long before your body is fully ready. Your legs are still stiff from the cold, your arms sluggish, but the steward's sharp voice gives no room for hesitation. You are handed your first task of the morning without ceremony, hauling buckets of water up from the well to the kitchens. It's not the kind of chore you can rush through, even if you wanted to. The wooden bucket is heavy when full, sloshing and swaying, and you must navigate the uneven stone paths of the courtyard carefully to avoid spilling precious water. As you grip the handle, your hands already ache, the chill from the iron biting into your skin. You walk back and forth, again and again, feeling the weight pull at your shoulders, your fingers numbing until you can barely feel them gripping the wood. The work is monotonous, repetitive, and unending. No one thanks you for it, and no one really notices, except if you make a mistake, if you trip and spill, if you slip on the stones, if you fail to deliver fast enough. Mistakes here are not forgotten, and you quickly learn to measure each step, to balance carefully, to bear the weight silently. The kitchen itself is a bustling, roaring space, even at this early hour. You step inside, carrying the bucket, and are immediately engulfed by the hot, smoky air. Fires crackle in the great hearths, casting flickering orange light across soot-darkened walls. The head cook is already barking orders, her face flushed from the heat, sleeves rolled to her elbows as she directs the army of kitchen hands. You see servants peeling vegetables, stirring steaming cauldrons, scrubbing knives on worn stones. The smells here are a dizzying mix. Burning wood, sharp herbs, bubbling fat, raw meat, and the faintly metallic tang of the iron pots. You find yourself both drawn to and repelled by the kitchen. It is the heart of the castle's daily life, but it is also a place of relentless labour, where no one stops moving, where the heat never gives you a break, where one wrong move can earn you a cuff to the ear, or worse. Once your water delivery is done, there is no pause to rest. The steward finds you again, directing you next to the great hall, where you are to help scrub the stone floors. You collect a rough brush, a pail, and a ragged cloth, and you begin. The floor stretches out before you, vast and cold, the flagstones worn smooth by centuries of passing feet. You kneel, dipping the brush in water, scrubbing until the muscles in your arms burn, and the damp seeps through the knees of your trousers. The cold stone presses back against your body, chilling your bones even as you work. You can hear your breath rasping softly in your own ears, mingled with the distant sounds of the castle waking up, the soft murmur of nobles in conversation, the bark of dogs in the courtyard, the muffled clang of metal on metal from the smithy. But here, in the great hall, you are alone with the stone, the water, and the endless task before you. There's something strangely meditative about it, though you don't dare admit it out loud. The steady rhythm of scrubbing, rinsing, wringing out the cloth, and scrubbing again becomes a kind of quiet background hum in your mind. The sharp ache in your muscles dulls after a while, turning into something you can almost tune out. You move from one end of the hall to the other, your knees stiff, your fingers puckered from the water, but you keep going because stopping is not an option. There's too much to be done, and too few hands to do it. You glance up occasionally, watching the tall, stained glass windows throw shards of pale light onto the floor, illuminating motes of dust that dance lazily in the cold air. It's a brief, quiet beauty in an otherwise brutal routine. The steward appears again. He always seems to appear just when you think you might catch a breath, and this time you are sent to help prepare the fireplaces in the guest chambers. You gather firewood from the stack near the courtyard, cradling it awkwardly in your arms, the rough bark scraping against your skin. As you move through the castle corridors, the temperature shifts noticeably. The guest rooms are warmer, the heavy tapestries on the walls muffling the chill, the ornate rugs soft underfoot. But the work is no lighter here. You kneel at each hearth, stacking the wood carefully, arranging the kindling just so, coaxing the fire into life. Smoke stings your eyes, and you cough softly, blinking away the tears as the flames crackle and catch. You can't help but notice the fine details in these rooms, the polished wooden furniture, the delicate embroidery on the cushions, the faint scent of perfumed oils lingering in the air. These are spaces you will never inhabit, never belong to, except as the invisible hands that maintain them. Even after the fires are lit, your work is far from done. There are chamber pots to empty a task you dread for its smell, its weight, and the humiliation of it. You carry the brimming pots carefully down to the waste pits, the sharp, sour stench making your eyes water, your stomach twist. You force yourself to breathe shallowly, to focus on the steps ahead of you, to not think too much about what you are carrying. Once the pots are emptied, they must be rinsed and scrubbed, your raw, chapped hands plunged into cold, dirty water again and again until the job is done. You do not complain. No one complains. It is simply part of the morning, part of the endless cycle of tasks that must be completed before the day can even truly begin. By the time the bell rings again, signaling the approach of the midday meal, you are exhausted. Your back aches fiercely, your hands are scraped and reddened, your legs feel heavy as stone. You stand briefly in the corridor, eyes half closed, feeling the sweat cool on your skin, feeling the tiredness sink deep into your muscles. And yet you know there is still so much more to come. The serving of meals, the cleaning, the errands, the fires, the endless tasks that fill every moment of life within these walls. You think, just for a moment, of what life might be like outside these stone walls. You remember fields under open sky, the sound of birds, the smell of fresh grass after rain. You wonder if you will ever stand under that sky again, if you will ever breathe air that isn't tinged with smoke and stone and sweat. But then the steward's voice calls sharply down the corridor and you push the thought away. There is no time for dreaming here. There is only the work and the long, long day still stretching out before you. And so you pull yourself upright, take a steadying breath, and move forward. Because here in the castle, the morning never really ends. It simply folds into the afternoon, the evening, the night, in an endless rhythm that leaves no room for anything but survival. You learn, slowly but surely, to endure. By the time you stand in the Great Hall, your feet are already sore, and your back is tight from the long morning's labour. The afternoon light filters through the tall stained glass windows, casting red and blue pools across the flagstones, and you feel the chill of the stone walls even through your thick tunic. The hall is vast, its high timbered ceiling lost in shadows above, the banners of the Lord's house hanging motionless in the still air. Everything here feels exaggerated, the length of the wooden tables, the weight of the heavy iron chandelier, the gleam of the great fireplace, where a roaring blaze struggles against the creeping cold. You take your place at the edge of the room, near the wall, your hands folded in front of you, shoulders slightly hunched. You are not to speak, not to move unnecessarily, not to draw attention. Servants are expected to be useful but invisible here. You stand perfectly still, but every nerve in your body is alert, watching, listening, waiting for the next command. The heavy wooden doors creak open, and the Lord's family enters, their clothes rich with velvet and fur, the light catching on the gold embroidery at their collars and cuffs. Behind them, trail guests, minor nobles, visiting dignitaries, the occasional priest, or high-ranking knight. Their voices fill the room, laughing, murmuring, rising, and falling like a tide. You cannot help but feel the difference between them and you, not just in clothing, or posture, or speech, but in the very air they carry. They belong here. You do not. They sit, you stand. They feast, you serve. You feel the smallness of your own body, the coarseness of your homespun fabric, the slight tremble in your hands as you grip the pitcher or the tray. And yet you know, without you and the other servants, this grand display would collapse. You are part of the machinery that keeps their world turning, even if they never truly see you. The smells in the hall are overwhelming. Roasted meats, wild boar, pheasant, beefs and their rich, greasy aroma curling through the air. Platters of fresh bread, golden and warm, are carried past you, the yeasty scent making your stomach tighten painfully. Trays of cheese, creamy and sharp, mingled with dried fruits and nuts, pass so close you can almost taste them. Spiced wine steams gently in polished goblets, filling the air with the sweet bite of cinnamon and cloves. Your own meal, when it comes later, will be thin gruel, maybe a scrap of crust if you're lucky. But here, watching the nobles feast, you are surrounded by more food than you can imagine, and none of it is yours. You move when you are called, stepping forward silently to refill a goblet, to carry away a used platter, to fetch a new dish from the kitchen. You keep your eyes low, never meeting a noble's gaze, speaking only in short, practiced responses. Your heart pounds faster every time you approach the Lord's table, the knowledge heavy in your chest that a single mistake spilling wine, dropping a plate, misunderstanding a command could earn you harsh words, or worse. You have seen servants dismissed for less, or punished in small, quiet ways. A cut to their portion of food, a cold slap, a public scolding meant to remind everyone of their place. And so you step carefully. You balance the trays precisely. You listen to every word, every gesture, every glance, tuning your body to the invisible rhythm of the feast. You learn the unspoken Kestaway. A guest pushes his plate slightly forward when he wants more. The lift of a noble woman's fingers when her goblet is empty. The subtle change in the steward's tone when the kitchen is delayed. You become, over time, a kind of living extension of the hall, responding without thought, reacting without pause. It is exhausting work, and yet you know there is a strange pride in doing it well, even if no one praises you for it. As the feast stretches on, the air in the hall grows warmer, heavy with smoke and heat. The nobles grow louder, looser, their laughter rising in bursts, their stories spilling over each other like wine across a table. You hear fragments as you pass, talk of land disputes, of marriages arranged, of falcon hunts and tournaments, and the petty grievances of people who have never known the kind of labour that shapes your days. Sometimes they speak of war, of alliances and betrayals, of neighbouring lords who might one day become enemies. You hear their words but do not truly understand them, and you know you are not meant to. Your world is the world of hands and backs and knees, not politics. There are moments, though, when you catch a glimpse, just a glimpse of something more. You see the way a young lady's smile fades the moment she looks away, the flash of anger in a noble's eyes when another cuts across his story, the tight, calculated glances exchanged between certain guests. You realize, slowly, that even in this world of wealth and power, there are tensions and dangers, traps and pressures. It is not a world you would want to live in, you remind yourself, even as part of you aches at the thought of silk against your skin, of rings on your fingers, of food enough to eat whenever you wished. By the time the meal begins to wind down, your legs are trembling from standing so long, your back ached into a stiff curve, your hands faintly shaking from the endless strain of holding and balancing. The nobles, drunk on wine and heavy with food, begin to drift away, leaving scraps and bones, half-empty platters, stained goblets. You and the other servants descend, like silent shadows, clearing the wreckage, scraping bones into buckets for the dogs, stacking plates, wiping down the long wooden tables. The hall, once so loud and golden with laughter and light, empties into a cold, echoing space, the last embers of the hearth crackling softly as you work. Only when the hall is cleaned, the dishes carried back, the floors swept, are you allowed to take a brief pause. You step outside into the chill of the evening air, drawing a deep, shaky breath, feeling the coolness on your sweat-damp skin. Your stomach growls faintly, reminding you that your own meal still waits, plain and small in the servants' quarters. You look up at the darkening sky, the faintest scattering of stars beginning to appear above the battlements, and you feel, for a brief moment, a strange sense of stillness. You survived another feast. You made no mistakes. You are still here. And soon, you will go back inside, back to your small corner, back to your thin blanket and cold straw, knowing that tomorrow you will do it all again. The castle never stops, and neither can you. Winter inside the castle is not the romantic, snow-draped wonder you might have imagined as a child. It is bitter, unrelenting, and bone-deep. You feel it the moment you open your eyes in the morning, before you even throw off your blanket, the sharp sting of cold air against your face, the bite of frost against your exposed fingers. The straw-stuffed mattress beneath you is damp and chilly, offering no warmth, no comfort. You curl deeper under your thin wool blanket, drawing your knees to your chest, trying to trap whatever little heat your body has generated during the night. But the cold creeps in anyway, slow and patient, finding its way into your bones. When you rise, your breath curls visibly in the dim air, misting in front of your face. You watch it for a moment, fascinated despite yourself, until the sharp command of the steward cuts through the stillness, snapping you into motion. You stumble to your feet, shivering, pulling on your stiff, half-frozen shoes, feeling the rough, cracked leather scrape against your skin. Your fingers are so numb that fastening the ties of your tunic feels like threading a needle with mittens. There's no fire waiting for you, no heated bath, no warm breakfast, just the relentless, icy air and the long list of chores that waits for you every single day. The stone walls that rise so proudly around you, designed to protect, to fortify, to endure, offer no kindness in winter. They hold the cold inside like a coffin holds its dead. You run your hand along the wall as you pass through the corridors, feeling the dampness of condensation, the slickness of frost forming in the corners where sunlight never touches. The flagstones under your feet are treacherously cold, leaching warmth through your thin soles. Even the tapestries on the noble walls, meant to display wealth and refinement, do little to soften the bitter edge of the draughty halls. You wonder sometimes how even the lords bear it, but then you remember they have thick furs, roaring hearths, feathered beds, and layers of servants tending to their every need. You, meanwhile, carry buckets of frozen water, haul armfuls of damp firewood, and scrub ice-cold stone floors until your fingers turn raw and red. Outside in the courtyard, the wind cuts through your clothes like a knife. The sky hangs heavy and low, thick with grey clouds, threatening snow or sleet, or, worse, freezing rain. You tug your sleeves down over your hands, but it's a feeble defence against the relentless winter air. Your skin cracks at the knuckles, splitting open in small, painful lines, and every time you flex your fingers, they sting sharply, as if the cold itself is punishing you for daring to move. You try not to think about it. You try not to think about anything except the next chore, the next task, the next small moment of survival. The kitchen, so often a blistering hell in the summer months, becomes a small refuge in winter. The heat of the hearths offers some relief, and you find excuses to linger there whenever you can, bringing in extra wood, helping turn the spit, stirring pots even when it's not strictly your responsibility. But even here, warmth is fleeting. The fires are for cooking, not for warming the servants, and standing too close too long earns you sharp words and a shove toward your next assignment. You learn quickly to soak up the heat in brief, stolen moments, holding your hands near the flames just long enough to chase away the numbness, not so long as to be noticed. At night, the cold becomes something almost alive. You feel it pressing in around you as you huddle under your blanket, your breath hissing softly between your teeth. The walls groan faintly in the freezing air, and the wooden beams overhead creak and pop as they contract in the cold. You sleep curled tightly, limbs drawn in, chin tucked against your chest, trying to make yourself small, trying to trap whatever little warmth your body can generate. But no matter how tightly you wrap yourself, the cold finds its way in. It settles in your toes, in your fingers, in the base of your spine, in the hollow of your throat. You dream of warmth of sunlight, of summer, of sitting by a fire with your hands outstretched, but you wake to the same relentless chill. The animals in the castle fare no better. You pass the stables and hear the soft, uneasy snorts of the horses, the restless shifting of their hooves on the straw. The stable boys work tirelessly to keep them fed, to keep the worst of the cold at bay, but you can see the frost clinging to the horses' manes, the stiff, trembling twitch of their muscles. The hounds in the kennels whimper softly in their sleep, huddled together for warmth. You sometimes envy them, their ability to curl up into a single, compact ball of shared heat, their lack of awareness of the long, freezing days ahead. Sometimes, when you stand outside in the yard, breath misting before your face, you look up at the sky and wonder if the cold will ever end. You know, of course, that spring will come, eventually the earth will soften, the days will lengthen, the sun will return. But right now, in the depths of winter, that future feels impossibly distant, as if the world has always been cold and always will be. You wonder how many more mornings you can endure, waking to numb fingers and aching bones, how many more nights you can survive, shivering under a thin blanket, how many more days you can haul water and scrub floors and split wood in the biting wind. And yet, you keep going. You wake, you work, you sleep, and you wake again, because there is no other choice. You remind yourself, quietly, that you are not alone. The other servants endure the same cold, the same exhaustion, the same unending struggle. You see it in their faces, in their cracked hands, in the way they hunch their shoulders and wrap their arms around themselves as they work. There is a strange, unspoken solidarity in this shared suffering, even if no one says it aloud. You are all caught in the same long winter, and you all endure it together. When you close your eyes at night, shivering in the dark, you sometimes think of the spring. You imagine the feel of warm sun on your face, the smell of fresh grass, the sound of birdsong in the trees. You imagine standing outside, bare-armed, feeling the earth soft beneath your feet. And even though the cold still clings to you, even though your body still aches, you hold on to that small, fragile hope. Because winter, no matter how long or cruel, must eventually give way to spring. And until that day comes, you will rise each morning, wrap yourself against the cold, and carry on. The castle laundry is tucked away from the main halls, where the noble guests will never catch so much as a glimpse or a whiff of it. You walk down narrow stone steps into the cold, half-underground rooms, where the washerwomen and laundry servants spend their days. The air here is heavy with moisture, thick with the mingled scents of damp linen, old soap, and mildew creeping along the stone walls. Even before you reach the doorway, you can hear the slap of wet fabric, the splash of water, the quiet grunts of tired workers pulling and wringing and scrubbing. It is a world of water, weight, and endless repetition. You take your place among the others, sleeves rolled to your elbows, your thin fingers already stiff and red from the cold. Before you is a great wooden tub filled with icy water, hauled up bucket by bucket from the well. You plunge your hands in, gasping as the chill cuts through you, curling your fingers around a bundle of heavy clotha bedsheet, or perhaps a tablecloth from the Lord's Hall, or the tunic of one of the squires. It's impossible to tell. They all blur together, just more things to be scrubbed, more stains to be lifted, more damp weight to be hauled from one tub to the next. The soap you use is harsh, a rough lye that bites at the skin. You can feel it stinging the small cuts on your knuckles, the rawness between your fingers, the places where your skin has already begun to crack from too many hours spent wet and cold. You scrub anyway, working the fabric over the ridged board, pushing down hard enough to lift the dirt, the sweat, the grease. Your arms ache with the repetitive motion, the constant twisting and pressing, the effort of wringing out sopping cloth that feels twice as heavy when soaked. The water sloshes over your feet, soaking your thin shoes, making your toes numb and clumsy. You know from experience that you'll spend the rest of the day shivering, the wetness creeping up your legs, clinging to your skin like a second, colder garment. Around you, the other servants work in silence, their faces drawn and pale in the faint, watery light that filters down from the narrow windows. Occasionally, someone coughs or sniffles, but no one speaks. There is no time for conversation here, no space for distraction. The laundry must be done by the end of the day, or the steward will have sharp words and sometimes sharper punishments for those who fall behind. You keep your head down, eyes fixed on the task before you, letting the rhythm of the work pull you forward. Dunk, scrub, rinse, wring, hang. Over and over, until your body moves on its own, until the minutes and hours blur into a single aching stretch of effort. The smell in the laundry room is something you never quite get used to. At first, it's the sharp, biting scent of the lye soap, thick and almost metallic on your tongue. But beneath that, there's the sour odour of damp fabric that has been left too long without drying, the faint, unpleasant trace of sweat soaked deep into the cloth, the earthy reek of mud and grass, and sometimes worse. You try to breathe through your mouth when it gets too strong, but after a while, even that seems pointless. The smell sinks into your clothes, into your hair, into your skin. You carry it with you even when you leave, as much a part of you as your own scent. When the laundry is finally scrubbed and rinsed, the next stage begins, hanging it to dry. You step out into the cold courtyard, arms laden with dripping linens. the weight of them pulling at your shoulders, your back, your wrists. You stretch up, pinning them to the lines strung between wooden posts, feeling the icy breeze cut through your damp sleeves. The cloth stiffens quickly in the cold, freezing into odd shapes if left too long. You rub your hands together, trying to summon a little heat into your fingers before you go back inside for another load. In the summer, the sun helps dry the laundry, but in winter, it's a losing battle. The damp clings stubbornly to the fabric, the weak daylight doing little to chase it away. You sometimes wonder how many times you've hauled the same heavy blanket or tunic back and forth between the washroom and the courtyard, only to find it still damp, still heavy, still waiting for one more round. It feels endless, a loop you can't escape. You dream sometimes, in those rare moments when your mind drifts, of a life without laundry, without the constant ache of your arms, without the sting of soap and cold water. But then the next pile arrives, and you sink your hands back into the icy tub, and you remind yourself that dreaming is dangerous here. You occasionally catch glimpses of the noble lady's fine gowns, the delicate silks and velvets that never pass through your hands. Those are entrusted to special keepers, people trained in the art of cleaning expensive fabric, people who know how to handle the fragile dyes, the intricate embroidery. You, on the other hand, deal with the coarse linens, the rough woolen blankets, the servants' uniforms, the kitchen rags. You scrub and scrape and wring and twist until your muscles burn, until your fingers can barely grip, until the piles shrink slowly down. By the end of the day, you are exhausted in a way that feels almost bone deep. Your shoulders sag, your hands tremble, your legs ache with the weight of standing, lifting, moving without pause. The laundry room is quieter now, the tub's empty, the water still, the soap scum floating lazily on the surface. You look down at your raw, reddened hands, flexing your fingers slowly, feeling the small cracks widen with each movement. You think briefly about the work that will wait for you tomorrow, the fresh piles of clothes and linens that will arrive, the same motions you will repeat all over again. And you wonder, not for the first time, if this is simply what life is now, an endless cycle of cleaning what will only be dirtied again. As you leave the laundry room, stepping carefully over the damp stone floor, you feel the cold air of the corridor hit you like a slap. Your clothes cling wetly to your skin, your hair is damp against the back of your neck, and your body feels twice as heavy as it did when you woke. But still, you straighten your spine, square your shoulders, and move forward. Because the castle never stops. The laundry never stops. And neither, it seems, do you. There are tasks in the castle that no one envies, no one volunteers for, no one speaks of except in hushed, disgusted tones. Cleaning the priviest the latrines, the cesspits, the filth police one of them. It is the work assigned to the lowest among the servants, the newest, the weakest, the ones too small or too powerless to refuse. And so it is no surprise when, after only a short time in the castle, you find yourself standing at the entrance to the privy chamber, a bucket in your hand, a cloth tied over your mouth and nose, your heart sinking in your chest as you breathe in the suffocating, foul air. The smell is the first thing that hits you. It comes in waves, heavy and cloying, sinking into your skin, your clothes, your hair. You have smelled bad things before: rotting food, dead animals. The sour stench of sweat, but nothing prepares you for this. This is the smell of concentrated human waste, of years of filth collecting in the pits below, of decay and rot and things too vile to name. It curls into your nostrils, coats the back of your throat, makes your stomach twist and cramp. You gag once, twice, pressing the cloth tighter to your face, but it does little to help. The smell seeps through everything. The privies are simple structures, narrow wooden benches with holes cut into them, perched over deep pits that collect the waste from above. The nobles, of course, have their own private chambers, tucked away behind carved doors, lined with tapestries and furnished with delicate stools or padded seats. But even these must be cleaned, and it falls to you and the other low-ranking servants to do it. You start by emptying the chamber pots, heavy and sloshing, their contents threatening to spill with each shaky step. You carry them down narrow, twisting staircases to the outer pits, where they are dumped with careful, nauseating precision. The splash of the liquid below makes you flinch every time, the sound sharp and wet and loud in the otherwise still air. Your hands tremble as you scrub the pots, using rough brushes and buckets of icy water, your fingers going numb from both the cold and the effort. The stains are stubborn, the odours relentless. You scrub until your arms ache, until your back cramps, until the edge of the pot leaves deep, red marks across your palms. There is no glamour here, no pride, no satisfaction, only the slow, grinding certainty that you will be back tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, repeating the same filthy task. In the larger cesspits, the work is even worse. Here, you must wade carefully along narrow walkways, balancing buckets and shovels, scooping out the thick, heavy sludge that collects at the bottom. The older servants tell you stories of people who slipped, who fell into the pits, who drowned in the filth, whose bodies were never fully recovered. You try not to think about it as you work, but the images creep into your mind anyway. The cold, choking darkness, the suffocating weight, the slow, panicked sinking. You force yourself to focus on each small, deliberate, motion-owned scoop, one step, one bucket at a time. The smell lingers long after you leave. You wash your hands, your arms, your face, but the stench clings to you, sinking into your pores, your hair, the fabric of your clothes. Other servants wrinkle their noses as you pass. Some laugh quietly, others look away. You understand why the privy workers are so often shunned, kept apart, treated as if the filth of their work has somehow become part of who they are. You tell yourself that you are not like them, that you will not always do this, that one day you will be assigned to other, better tasks. But for now, you carry the stink with you, wearing it like a second skin, feeling its weight in every glance, every whisper, every step. Sometimes, as you empty the chamber pots or scrub the benches, you wonder how the nobles can live with such waste so near, how they can dine in luxury just above these stinking pits, how they can speak of honour and beauty while sitting on carved wooden seats that funnel their filth down to you. You wonder if they even think about it, if they know or care who cleans their waste, who scrubs away their mess, who suffers for their comfort. But then you remind yourself that wondering is dangerous, that questions are dangerous, that survival depends on keeping your head down, your mouth shut, your thoughts carefully folded away inside your mind. The worst part, perhaps, is how the work never truly ends. No matter how many pots you empty, how many pits you scoop, how many floors you scrub, the filth returns. It is a constant, unyielding cycle, fed by the daily needs of the dozens, sometimes hundreds, who live within the castle walls. You wake, knowing that the privies will need cleaning, that the pots will be waiting, that the smell will wrap around you again. You fall asleep knowing it will all begin again tomorrow. It is a kind of invisible labor, unnoticed by those it serves, unpraised, unrewarded, but essential nonetheless. Without you, the castle would drown in its own waste. Without you, the noble halls above would stink of rot and filth. Without you, the delicate balance of the castle's daily life would collapse. And so you keep going. You hold your breath when you can. You gag and retch when you must. You wash and scrub and shovel and haul, because there is no other option. You learn small tricks to ease the Burdana dab of herbs under the nose, a tightly knotted cloth, a brief pause in the fresh air, but in the end, nothing truly shields you from the reality of the work. You are the one who cleans what others leave behind, the one who carries away the filth, the one who scrubs away the stains. You are part of the castle, and the castle depends on you, even if no one ever says it, even if no one ever thanks you. When you finally step outside, the cold air stings your skin, sharp and biting, but you draw it in deeply anyway, grateful for the clean scent, the fresh wind. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the breeze cut through the layers of stink and sweat and soap, and you remind yourself you are still here. You are still standing. You will rise tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, and you will endure. Because that is what castle servants do. It happens rarely, and when it does, it feels like a small miracle. A moment when the endless noise of the castle quiets, when no one is calling your name, no steward is shouting orders, no kitchen maid is pulling you by the sleeve, no heavy bucket or pot or broom waits in your hands. A moment when, just for a breath, you are not running, not labouring, not enduring, you are simply standing still. It often comes at the edges of the day, in those thin slivers of time, when the world pauses between the rush of tasks. Perhaps after you've scrubbed the last pot, before the evening bell calls you back to the servants' quarters. Perhaps while crossing the courtyard with empty hands, when no one happens to notice you drifting a little slower than usual. Perhaps as you carry firewood down the corridor and glance, just for a heartbeat, through a narrow window high above your head. The view through those windows is like a painting, framed in rough stone. The hills rolling softly into the distance, the forest stretching dark and deep along the horizon, the pale glow of the sky shifting with the fading sun. You catch only glimpses. Your work leaves you no time to linger, but in those glimpses, something stirs in you. A quiet ache, a tugging at the edge of memory, a small voice whispering that there is a world beyond these cold, thick walls. The air beyond the castle always seems crisper, freer. You close your eyes and imagine stepping outside, walking beyond the drawbridge, past the stables and the muddy yard, beyond the peasants' fields and the narrow village lanes, and simply going. You imagine the feel of soft grass under your bare feet, the warm press of sunlight on your shoulders, the rustle of trees overhead. You imagine walking far enough that the castle shrinks behind you, its towers fading into the distance until it is no more than a shadow on the horizon. But you do not walk. You stay where you are, pressed against the window frame or standing quietly in the shadowed courtyard, because even in these rare moments, you know you will be called back soon. The work never pauses for long. The castle does not care for daydreams. It does not make space for wondering, for wishing, for aching toward things you cannot reach. You have learned to tuck those thoughts away, to bury them deep, to let them surface only for a breath or two before pushing them back down beneath the weight of routine. Sometimes, you find your moments of escape in the courtyard gardens, especially when you're sent there to fetch herbs or sweep the stone paths. It is not a grand gardenot like the Lord's private orchard or the carefully arranged noble flower beds, but it is a place where the wild peeks through the cracks, small patches of green moss between the stones, a vine creeping up the side of the wall, a cluster of stubborn weeds blooming bright and defiant near the well. You kneel to gather mint or thyme or rosemary for the kitchen, breathing in their sharp, clean scents, and for a heartbeat, it feels like a kind of secret-like, something that belongs only to you, something untouched by the castle's hard, cold hands. Even the sky becomes a kind of companion. You catch pieces of it when you can. A wedge of pale blue through the narrow arrow slits, a wash of stars scattered over the nighttime courtyard, the faint glow of dawn slipping across the towers as you haul buckets to the kitchen. You find yourself memorizing its changes, the way it turns bruised purple before a storm, the way the moonlight pools across the stones, the way the sunlight flashes off the cold iron points of the portcullis. You imagine what it might feel like to stand beneath that wide sky, without walls around you, without roofs above you, without the heavy press of the castle closing in. There are times, rare but precious, when you slip away entirely for a few moments, ducking into a forgotten corner of the castle where no one will think to look. A narrow stairwell, a shadowed alcove, a quiet patch behind the kitchen where the laundry hangs on lines. You press your back to the cold stone, close your eyes, and listen to the faint drip of water from the roof, the rustle of wind against the battlements, the far-off murmur of voices that are not calling your name. You draw a long, steadying breath, letting your shoulders loosen, your jaw unclench, your heart slow its pounding rhythm. You remind yourself, quietly, that you are still here, that you are more than just the tasks you perform, the orders you follow, the weight you carry. And yet, even in these small moments, there is no real escape. You carry the castle with you, even in your stillness. You carry it in the ache of your arms, the calluses on your palms, the constant awareness at the back of your mind that time is slipping, that you will be missed if you linger too long. You carry it in the knowledge that you cannot leave, not truly, not unless you are willing to risk hunger, punishment, exile, or worse. You are bound to this place, woven into its rhythms, its needs, its hungers. You are part of it, even when you stand alone, gazing out at the sky and dreaming of somewhere else. When you finally pull yourself away from the window, the garden, the corner, you do so with a kind of quiet resignation. You square your shoulders, set your jaw, and step back into the stream of tasks waiting for you. You know the steward will be looking for you soon, that the kitchens will need fresh water, that the guest chambers will need fresh rushes, that the great hall will need its fires stoked and its tables set. You know the moment of stillness is over, and you will not find another until the day slips into night, and even then, only if you are lucky. But even so, you carry something small with you as you return to your duties. A scrap of sky, a breath of wind, the memory of sunlight on your face. A quiet reminder that, for all the castle takes from you, it cannot take everything. That somewhere beyond the walls, the world is still wide, still waiting, still moving. And that one day, maybe, you will find your way back to it. If the rest of the castle is cold, heavy, and shadowed, the kitchen is its opposite, alive, blistering, blinding with noise, heat, and motion. From the moment you step through the thick wooden door, you are hit with a wave of heat, so strong it feels like walking straight into a furnace. Your skin prickles, sweat beads along your brow, and your clothes, damp and cold moments before, suddenly cling to you, suffocating and heavy. The air is thick with smoke, steam, and the sharp smells of grease and burning wood, stinging your eyes, coating your tongue, clogging your lungs. The kitchen is the castle's true heart, the part that never sleeps, never stops, never slows. Even when the great hall falls quiet, when the nobles retreat to their chambers and the servants collapse into their straw beds, the kitchen roars on, feeding fires, tending stews, preparing for the next day's meals. Here, the cooks are kings and queens in their own right, ruling over a chaotic empire of pots, spits, knives, and cauldrons. Their sharp commands echo off the soot-blackened walls. Their tempers flare hotter than the ovens, and their judgments land swift and unforgiving. You learn quickly to keep your head down, your hands busy, your feet out of the way, because one misplaced step, one spilled tray, one forgotten task can mean a cuff to the ear, or worse. You're often assigned to the simplest, roughest tasks. Hauling wood for the ovens, fetching water from the well, scrubbing pots so large you could sit inside them, peeling endless piles of roots and vegetables until your fingers cramp and your back aches. You kneel on the hard stone floor, a pile of turnips or onions or carrots before you, the sharp tang of earth and peel filling your nose as you work. The knife slips sometimes, nicking your fingers, but you hardly notice after the first few cuts. The sting becomes part of the rhythm, part of the labor you take for granted. Around you, the sounds never stop: the crackle of fire, the hiss of boiling pots, the heavy thunk of cleavers on wood, the shouted orders flying back and forth. It is overwhelming, yes, but also hypnotic, a kind of brutal dance that sweeps you along whether you want to join or not. The ovens are a world unto themselves, massive stone mouths belching heat and smoke, tended by a handful of boys no older than you, who shuffle back and forth with shovels, firewood, trays of bread and meat. You glimpse the glowing embers within, feel the searing waves of heat every time the heavy iron doors swing open. You marvel at the way the oven boys dart so close to the fire, their skin reddened, their arms bare and blistered, their faces slick with sweat. You envy and pity them in equal measure. Their proximity to the heat promises a fleeting relief from the castle's constant chill, but the price they pay is written plainly across their scorched, aching skin. The food itself is both torment and wonder. You are surrounded by more abundance than you ever knew existed. Whole sides of beef turning slowly on spits, fat geese roasting over open flames, baskets of fresh bread pulled steaming from the ovens, wheels of cheese, crates of vegetables, barrels of salted fish. The smells are intoxicating, maddening, a constant reminder of everything you cannot have. You are lucky if you get a few scraps at the end of the day-our heel of bread, a bit of boiled root, maybe a bone to suck clean. You work with food all day, handle it, carry it, prepare it, but almost none of it is yours. You've learned to ignore the gnawing ache in your stomach, to let the hunger become just another part of the work, like the sweat on your skin or the sting in your fingers. The head cook is a force of nature. She moves through the kitchen like a storm, sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, commanding everyone and everything with absolute authority. She knows where every ingredient is, how every dish is progressing, who is slacking, who is falling behind, who needs a swift kick to get moving. You learn to fear her voice, to jump when she calls your name, to hurry when she snaps her fingers. But you also come to admire her, in a way. She holds the whole chaotic machine together, keeps the meals flowing, keeps the fires burning, keeps the nobles fed and satisfied. Without her, the castle would grind to a halt. Without her, none of you would have a place here. There is no pause in the kitchen. No chance to stop, to breathe, to rest. One meal leads straight into the preparation for the next. One task tumbles into another. One day blurs into the next. You lose track of time down here, the sunlit world beyond the walls reduced to a vague memory. You measure the hours by the meals. Breakfast, midday, evening, the late trays sent up to the Lord's chambers, the early morning bread needed and set to rise. You measure your days by the state of your body, how much your feet ache, how raw your hands are, how many burns or cuts you've collected. And you measure your weeks by survival bee, whether you've managed to avoid disaster, to keep up with the relentless pace, to avoid the head cook's wrath. Sometimes, when the kitchen quiets just for a breath, when the last dish has been served, when the last pot has been scrubbed, when the fires are banked and the ovens go dark, you stand very still and listen. You hear the soft crackle of the dying embers, the faint drip of water from the scullery, the low murmur of the other servants as they shuffle away to their quarters. You feel the weight of the day settle into your bones, heavy and familiar, and you let yourself wonder, just for a moment, what life might be like if you were anywhere else. But the moment never lasts. There is always another pot to clean, another tray to carry, another fire to stoke. And so you square your shoulders, wipe the sweat from your brow, and step back into the heat. Because the castle's kitchens never stop. And neither, if you want to survive, can you. The castle is not only stone and iron, not only work and sweat, it is also a hierarchy, a layered world of status, rules, and power, where even among the servants, survival depends on knowing exactly where you stand. Mistakes here are not small things. They are noticed, recorded, remembered, and paid for. One wrong word, one clumsy step, one forgotten chore can change everything, turning an already hard existence into something even harder, something sharp-edged and punishing. The punishments are not always brutal, but they are always effective. Sometimes they come as a cutting word, a public scolding in front of the others, a shameful reminder of your failure. Sometimes they come as a withholding of food, the loss of your evening meal, the denial of a small scrap you were counting on to get through the next day. And sometimes they come as something more physical, a slap to the face, a shove that sends you sprawling, a sudden, sharp cuff to the back of the head that leaves your ears ringing and your eyes stinging with unwanted tears. You learn quickly to endure these things, to swallow your anger, to stiffen your spine and keep moving. To protest, to argue, to try to explain is worse. It marks you as difficult, defiant, someone to be watched and punished more. But it isn't only the punishments from above that make life difficult. Among the servants themselves, there are power games, small but deadly struggles for dominance, for favour, for scraps of privilege that can mean the difference between surviving or sinking. The older servants hold themselves above the newer ones, giving the worst chores, the hardest jobs, the foulest duties to those too fresh or too timid to push back. The scullery maids elbow you away from the warmest corner near the hearth. The stable boys sneer and shoulder you aside when the steward isn't looking. The laundry workers snatch the driest rags and leave you with the ones that soak your sleeves and sap your strength. It is a silent war, fought not with weapons, but with glances, whispers, and small, cutting acts of cruelty. You try your best to stay invisible, not so invisible that you're seen as lazy or useless, but just invisible enough that you don't draw too much attention, don't make yourself a target. You learn to watch, to read the room, to anticipate the shifts in mood and the sudden flare of tempers. You sense when the steward is looking for someone to blame, when the cook is nearing a breaking point, when the headmaid is searching for a convenient scapegoat. You keep your head down, your hands busy, your voice soft, and your eyes always open. Still, no one escapes entirely. One day, a small slip, a bucket tipped over, a platter dropped, a message delivered too late, earns you a scolding so sharp it leaves you trembling, your face hot with humiliation, your chest tight with anger you cannot express. Another day, someone accuses you of stealing food, a crust of bread, a handful of nuts, and though you did no such thing, you are punished anyway, your word carrying no weight against theirs. You spend the night hungry, curled under your thin blanket, fists clenched, jaw tight, trying to push away the gnawing ache in your belly and the sharper, colder ache of injustice. There is a strange kind of currency among the servants, a silent system of debts and favours that shapes who rises and who falls. You owe someone for covering your mistake, for slipping you an extra scrap of bread, for warning you of an approaching steward. In turn, you find yourself bound to them, helping them haul heavy buckets, taking their shift when they are sick, looking the other way when they pocket something small. These little alliances are fragile, easily broken, but they are the closest thing you have to protection. Alone, you are exposed, vulnerable, easily crushed by the weight of the system. Together, even in uneasy, temporary alliances, you can carve out small spaces of safety. And then, above it all, are the nobles distant, untouchable, their whims shaping the course of your days in ways they probably never notice. A nobleman in a foul mood might send you scurrying with unreasonable demands. A lady displeased with her chambers might blame the servants, setting off a chain of punishments that land on heads far below hers. A drunken guest might lash out with a careless hand, a thoughtless insult, a small act of cruelty that you must endure with lowered eyes and clenched fists. You are not allowed to speak back, not allowed to refuse, not allowed to remind them that you, too, are a human being. You are there to serve, and any failure to do so, any sign of resistance, any flash of temper, is punished swiftly and harshly. At night, when the work is done and you slip away to your narrow bed, you lie awake sometimes, thinking about the weight of it all. You think about the countless rules you must remember, the small traps you must avoid, the invisible lines you must never cross. You think about the other servants, each caught in their own quiet struggle, each trying to survive in a world that offers so little kindness, so little room to breathe. You think about the punishments you've received, the ones you've witnessed, the ones you know are waiting just around the corner if you make a single misstep. And yet, somehow, you keep going. You rise each morning. You step into the current of work and duty. You navigate the shifting tides of power and punishment with as much grace as you can muster. You carry the bruises, the hunger, the humiliation, and you keep moving, because to stop, to give in, to falter, that is to risk everything. You remind yourself that you are still here, still standing, still surviving. And sometimes, just sometimes, you allow yourself to believe that survival in itself is a kind of quiet victory. By the time night falls over the castle, your body is a patchwork of aches, bruises, and bone-deep exhaustion. Your shoulders throb from carrying wood and buckets. Your knees burn from hours of kneeling on cold stone floors. Your hands are cracked and raw from scrubbing, peeling, twisting, lifting. And yet, despite the overwhelming heaviness pressing down on you, sleep is not a guarantee. The servants' quarters are little more than a long, low-ceilinged chamber, tucked deep into the castle's belly. Rough wooden beams arch over narrow bunks, most crammed together so tightly you can barely slip between them. The smell hits you the moment you step inside. Stale sweat, damp straw, old wool, and the sour breath of too many exhausted bodies crammed into too small a space. The air is cold, almost colder than outside, the thick stone walls holding in the day's chill like a tomb. You pull your thin blanket tighter around your shoulders, feeling its familiar scratch against your skin, and sink slowly onto your mattress, little more than a rough sack stuffed with straw. You can hear the soft murmurs of the others, voices kept low to avoid waking those already drifting into uneasy dreams. Some wearily trade gossip from the day, sharing whispered stories of a noble's sharp words, a near disaster in the kitchens, a cruel punishment narrowly avoided. Others lie silent, their faces turned to the wall, their backs curled in on themselves, too drained even to speak. The room hums with the small sounds of the night, the faint rustle of blankets, the occasional cough, the soft creak of wooden frames settling under tired bodies. You close your eyes and try to let the sounds wash over you, to pull you gently down into sleep. But sleep comes in fits, if it comes at all. The cold seeps in no matter how tightly you wrap yourself, creeping up from the floor, pressing in from the walls, finding every gap and crack in your clothing. You curl tightly, knees drawn up to your chest, fingers tucked under your chin, trying to hold on to whatever little heat your body has left. Still, you shiver. You can feel your toes slowly go numb, your shoulders tense and rigid, your jaw clenching against the cold. You long for a real blanket, a thick fur, a feathered mattress like the nobles sleep on upstairs. But that world is a universe away, unreachable, untouchable. You remind yourself, as you always do, that at least you have a place to lie down. At least you are inside. At least you are not in the yard, in the stables, or worse, outside the castle gates. Even if the cold doesn't keep you awake, the noise does. The castle never truly falls silent. Somewhere above you, footsteps echo faintly on stone, the heavy boots of guards on their rounds, the light, hurried steps of late-night messengers or chambermaids. You hear the distant clatter of a door closing, the soft scrape of a latch turning, the muffled bark of a restless dog in the yard. Sometimes, faint voices drift down from the upper levels, the laughter of a drunken noble returning late from the hall, the sharp, angry hiss of an argument behind a locked door, the low, rhythmic murmur of a priest's prayers echoing through the chapel. You lie still, listening, letting the sounds swirl through your half-dreaming mind, strange and disjointed, part of the castle's endless night song. And then there are the nights when sleep is shattered by sudden commotion, the clang of a bell, the urgent shouts of guards, the hurried rush of servants summoned from their beds to carry messages, fetch supplies, tend to some noble emergency. You've been yanked from sleep more than once, scrambling to your feet, heart pounding, legs trembling, eyes still heavy with exhaustion, as you stumble through the dark corridors on one errand or another. You never know when the call will come, only that when it does, you must be ready, must be quick, must be useful. Any hesitation, any mistake will be remembered. Even when no emergency comes, even when the castle settles into its deepest quiet, your mind often keeps you awake. You lie in the dark, staring up at the rough beams above you, feeling the slow, tight ache in your muscles, the constant gnawing of hunger in your belly, the dull, heavy weight of weariness pressing into every inch of your body. And yet, your mind refuses to rest. It drifts restlessly through the day's events, replaying each moment, each command, each close call. Did you finish all your tasks? Did you forget something? Will someone call you out in the morning, point a finger, accuse you, punish you? You feel the tight knot of worry pull at your chest, and you turn over, pulling the blanket tighter, trying to force your thoughts to stillness. On rare nights, your mind slips away from worry and drifts into memory or fantasy. You think of the world beyond the castle walls, the open fields, the woods, the small village lanes, the streams and hills and skies you barely glimpse anymore. You remember the feel of grass under your feet, the scent of the earth after rain, the sound of birds singing at dawn. You imagine what it might be like to sleep under the stars, under a wide open sky, unburdened by stone walls, by duties, by rules. These thoughts bring a strange ache, half comfort, half sorrow, and you find yourself clutching them tightly, as if they are a kind of quiet rebellion, a reminder that you are still more than just a servant, more than just a pair of hands, more than just a name in the steward's ledger. And yet, even in those rare moments of softness, sleep is not always kind. When it does come, it brings dreams strange, twisting dreams filled with fragments of the castle, the faces of nobles and servants, the sharp sting of orders shouted across smoky rooms, the endless weight of work pressing down on your chest. You dream of falling, of running, of carrying burdens too heavy to bear, of searching for something you can never quite reach. You wake with a start, heart racing, breath caught in your throat, the dark room pressing close around you, the cold still sharp on your skin. You lie there, eyes wide, listening to the slow, uneven breathing of the others, feeling the dream slowly fade, replaced by the familiar heaviness of the castle night. And then, before you know it, the dawn bell is ringing, the grey light is creeping through the narrow windows, and the long day begins again. You rise, stiff and sore, your eyes heavy with too little sleep, your stomach already tightening with hunger, your mind bracing itself for the hours ahead. You pull on your clothes, lace up your shoes, and step out into the cold corridor, knowing that tonight will bring the same uneasy sleep, the same restless hours, the same endless cycle. You carry the tiredness with you, woven into your skin, into your bones, into the very rhythm of your days. But you carry it all the same, because in the castle there is no other way. You learn, over time, that the castle is more than just stone walls, roaring fires, cold floors, and endless labour. Beneath the surface, beneath the noise of chores and commands, beneath the daily routines that keep you occupied from dawn to nightfall, there are undercurrents, quiet, secretive, sometimes dangerous. You start to notice them only after months of living here, once your body has learned its tasks and your mind is no longer consumed by mere survival. It begins with whispers you catch when you're not meant to hear them. A noble speaking in hushed tones behind a half-closed door, a steward murmuring to the cook late at night, two guards trading sharp, tense words in the shadowed corners of the courtyard. You're trained through fear, repetition, and survival to keep your head down, your eyes low, your ears shut. But still, sometimes you can't help but hear. And when you do, you start to realize not everything in this castle is as it seems. You hear of betrayals, of alliances shifting in the dark, of one noble plotting against another, maneuvering for favor, angling for more land, more gold, more power. You hear servants speak quietly about letters carried in secret, about messengers riding out at night, about meetings held in chambers normally locked to all but the Lord himself. You understand quickly that these things are not for you to know, not for you to see, not for you to think about, and yet they hang over you like a shadow. You wonder, as you scrub the same stone floor you have scrubbed 100 times before, what history has been made in these very halls without your knowing. What cruel choices were decided at the long table you cleared just hours ago? What secrets the tapestries on the walls would whisper if they could speak? Sometimes you glimpse signs of darker things, not just political games, but punishments carried out away from the public eye. A bruised and swollen face among the stable boys, though no one dares ask why. A maid who disappears from the quarters one day and is never spoken of again. A quiet, sharp cry you hear late at night, echoing faintly through the stone corridors, cut off too soon to be accidental. You tell yourself not to wonder, not to ask, not to think. Curiosity here is dangerous, and you know your place. But the weight of these small moments settles in you anyway, heavy and cold, another burden added to the ones you carry each day. The castle itself holds its secrets too. There are places you are never allowed to go, doors you are never allowed to open, chambers you pass by only with your head low and your breath held. You wonder what lies beyond them. Treasure, perhaps, or relics, or old, forbidden books. Or perhaps just the personal things the nobles wish to keep, hidden love, letters, debts, maps, private wounds. Whatever it is, you know better than to let your gaze linger too long, better than to ask questions, better than to let anyone think you are anything more than a pair of hands, a silent, invisible presence passing through. Yet sometimes you can't help but feel the castle watching you back. At night, as you cross the darkened halls carrying a last bucket of water, you feel the cold stone walls pressing close, the flickering torchlight casting strange shadows that shift and shudder in the corners of your vision. You pass statues with hollow, sightless eyes, portraits whose painted faces seem just a little too knowing, tapestries whose woven figures dance and bleed and battle in silence on the walls. You catch yourself glancing over your shoulder, listening for a footstep that never comes, sensing a presence you cannot name. You tell yourself it's just the cold, just the tiredness, just the castle's age whispering to you through its ancient bones. But still, a shiver slips down your spine. The older servants know the stories. They speak of them rarely, cautiously, and only among themselves when the doors are closed and the fires are low. They talk of the Lord's ancestors, the ones who ruled with cruelty, who locked away their enemies, who made bargains with priests or sorcerers, or worse. They speak of the restless dead who roam the upper halls at night, of the pale woman sometimes glimpsed in the chapel when the moon is full, of the hidden rooms that no one dares open anymore. You listen silently, half skeptical, half believing, feeling the castle settle deeper and deeper into your bones. You don't need ghosts to make this place frightening. It's already full of shadows. And yet, for all its dangers, all its hidden threats, the castle is also your home. You know its twists and turns better than you know your own skin. You know where the cold drafts slip through the stones, where the best hiding spots are, where you can sneak a few extra minutes of warmth by the kitchen fire, or a few crumbs of food when no one's looking. You know the sounds it makes: the groan of old wood, the sigh of settling stone, the distant drip of water in forgotten corners. You know its moods, how it feels on a bright summer morning, all light and bustle and open air, how it feels in the depths of winter, heavy and dark and suffocating. You are part of it, as much as the stones, the banners, the iron gates. You carry its secrets, even if you don't fully understand them. You sweep the halls where plans are made. You scrub the rooms where lies are told. You light the fires that warm hands plotting betrayals you'll never hear about. You pass through the castle's life like a shadow, like a whisper, unseen but essential. And sometimes, in the quiet hours when you stand alone in a darkened corridor, you wonder if that is what you will always be: part of the castle, part of its hidden heart, holding its secrets without ever truly knowing them. You shake the thoughts from your mind and return to your tasks. Because whatever secrets the castle holds, they are not yours to chase. You have work to do, and in this place there is always work. At first, the aches seem like nothing. The soreness in your shoulders at the end of a long day, the faint burn in your thighs after hauling water up the stairs, the small stings and cuts from the scrub brush or the kitchen knives. You go to bed tired, you wake up sore, but you tell yourself it's temporary, just something your body needs time to get used to. After all, you are young, and the older servants carry even heavier burdens without complaint. You imagine that, given enough time, your muscles will harden, your skin will toughen, your back will straighten, and the work will become easy. But the truth is, the work never becomes easy. It grinds you down, slowly, steadily, relentlessly. Not all at once, not with a dramatic injury or a sudden collapse, but through the slow erosion of your strength, your energy, your resilience. Your hands, once quick and sure, become stiff with small injuries, a burn here, a slice there, a bruise or a sprain that never quite heals properly. Your knees, once nimble, begin to throb at night, the constant kneeling and crouching wearing down the joints. Your back aches from bending, lifting, twisting, the weight of firewood and buckets and baskets pulling at your spine until you feel it even in your sleep. You watch the older servants around you, and you see your future written in their bodies. The hunch in their shoulders, the limp in their step, the twisted fingers, the missing teeth, the pale, pinched faces drawn with years of fatigue. They shuffle when they walk, slow and cautious, their movements measured to conserve what little strength they have left. You hear them cough in the mornings, the deep, rattling sound of lungs, worn down by years of cold, damp air, smoke and dust. You notice how many of them carry old wounds, a stooped back from a fall on the icy stairs, a missing finger from a kitchen accident, a scar down the arm from a careless slip with the scythe or the axe. You realize, slowly, that the castle eats away at you, not just your time, not just your freedom, but your body itself. Every day takes a small piece. A little strength here, a little flexibility there, a little sharpness of mind, a little softness of heart. You are being spent, piece by piece, and there is no way to stop it, no way to regain what is lost. You patch yourself together as best you can, wrapping bandages over blisters, rubbing sore muscles at night, taking whatever scraps of food you can to keep your energy up. But no matter what you do, the toll is there, etched into you like the worn grooves on the castle's stone steps, like the smooth polish on the banisters touched by 1,000 hands. The cold makes it worse, of course. In winter, your fingers grow clumsy and stiff, your toes numb, your skin cracked and raw. You lose feeling in your extremities, and sometimes you don't notice the small cuts or burns until later, when they sting and throb. In the summer, the heat saps your strength, the sweat running down your back making your clothes cling and chafe, the constant thirst leaving your mouth dry and your head pounding. The work does not change with the seasons, only the kind of suffering it brings. The hunger is another constant companion. You are rarely full, never satisfied. The scraps you're given after the noble's meals, the thin porridge in the morning, the coarse bread at night, it is enough to keep you standing, but never enough to nourish you fully. You feel the weakness in your limbs, the lightness in your head when you stand too quickly, the hollowness in your belly that no amount of water can fill. You watch the nobles feast on roasted meats, fine pastries, sugared fruits, and you feel the dull ache of hunger pulse through you like a second heartbeat. You dream sometimes of sitting at a full table, eating until you are sated, until you can push the plate away with a satisfied sigh. But dreams, you remind yourself, do not fill empty stomachs. Sometimes you catch sight of yourself reflected faintly in the dark glass of a window or the polished metal of a pot. You barely recognize the face staring back at you, thinner than you remember, sharper, the eyes a little more sunken, the cheeks a little more hollow. You remember dimly what you used to look like before the castle, before the long days and the hard work and the endless demands. You wonder how much more you will change, how many more years it will take before you become like the oldest servants, bent and worn, your body a living map of your labour. And yet, despite all this, you keep going. Because what choice do you have? You work through the aches, the exhaustion, the hunger, because to stop is unthinkable. You tell yourself that you are stronger than you feel, that you can last another day, another week, another year. You remind yourself that the castle depends on you, that without your labour, the fires would go out, the floors would grow filthy, the meals would never reach the nobles' tables. You are part of the great machine, and even as it grinds you down, you keep it running. You bear the weight because there is no one else to bear it for you. At night, when you lie in your narrow bed, you feel the heaviness of your body settle into the straw mattress. You feel the throb in your joints, the burn in your muscles, the ache in your bones. You close your eyes, letting the exhaustion pull you down into uneasy sleep, knowing that tomorrow will bring more of the same. And yet, somehow, you find a strange, quiet strength in this, in the simple fact that you endure, that you rise each day and carry your burdens, that you are still here, still standing, still surviving. And as you drift into sleep, you wonder perhaps if that is its own kind of victory. You spend much of your day in the background, a shadow slipping silently through the great halls, the kitchens, the stairwells, always moving, always working, always unnoticed, or so you pretend. But the truth is, you notice everything. You see the nobles every day, up close and in detail. The way they walk, the way they speak, the way they laugh or scowl or ignore the world around them. You are not meant to meet their eyes, not meant to listen too closely to their words, but you can't help it. You soak it all in, day after day, learning their world, even as you know you will never be part of it. They glide across the stone floors, light-footed and elegant, their fine shoes clicking softly, their velvet cloaks trailing behind them like banners. You catch flashes of embroidered sleeves, jeweled belts, delicate chains of gold and silver at their throats. Their skin is pale, untouched by sun or rough weather, their hands smooth and unscarred, their fingers weighed down with rings. Even the children, when they appear, seem otherworldly, dressed in miniature finery, their faces carefully washed and powdered, their hair combed into perfect, shining waves. They speak with easy confidence, their words slow and measured, their voices carrying effortlessly through the halls. You listen as they joke, complain, boast, whisper secrets to one another. You hear them speak of matters you barely understand. Land holdings, political alliances, dowries, inheritances, court scandals, the rise and fall of neighbouring lords. You hear them discuss art, music, literature, and you wonder what it would be like to hold a book simply for pleasure, to paint or play an instrument without being ordered to do so by a master. You hear them gossip about one another, their rivalries and romances, their small victories and humiliations, and you marvel at how little their problems resemble your own. You watch them feast at long tables laden with foods you will never taste, drinking from goblets that shimmer in the candlelight, dabbing at their lips with soft linen napkins. You watch the way they gesture for more wine, more bread, more meat, never thinking of the hands that pour the wine, knead the bread, roast the meat. You watch them dance in the great hall during festivals, their gowns swirling, their laughter rising high and light, and you feel an ache deep in your chest that you cannot fully name. And yet, as you observe them, you also see their weaknesses, the things they work so hard to hide. You see the nobleman's hand trembling slightly as he lifts his goblet, his face pale from too much drink. You see the lady's carefully painted smile falter for a brief moment when she thinks no one is watching. You see the cold glance one lord gives another across the hall, the sharpness that flickers in their eyes before they smooth their faces into charm. You hear the snap in a noblewoman's voice when she speaks to a maid, the sudden harshness that reveals her own frustration, her own fear. You begin to realize that for all their wealth, their beauty, their power, they are not invincible. They, too, carry burdens, though theirs are hidden behind silk and gold. Sometimes you wonder what they see when they look at you. Do they see you at all? Are you just part of the background, a blur of rough fabric, a pair of lowered eyes, a shadow passing by with a tray or a broom or a bucket? Do they ever wonder about your life, your name, your thoughts, your dreams? You suspect they do not. To them, you are not a person. You are a function, the thing that makes their bath ready, their fire lit, their meal served. You are a pair of hands, a bowed head, a silent presence that slips in and out of their days without leaving a mark. And yet, you know their secrets. You know who sneaks into whose chambers late at night, whose debts are quietly paid off by a wealthier cousin, which noble son resents his father's authority, which daughter dreams of escape. You know who is kind to the servants, offering a soft word or a rare smile, and who treats you as if you are no more than furniture. You know which nobles are feared by their own peers, which ones are merely tolerated, which ones are secretly mocked behind their backs. You carry all these observations silently, carefully, knowing they give you no power, but holding them close nonetheless, like small treasures. In the quiet moments, you sometimes let your mind wander. You imagine what it would be like to stand in their shoes, to wear fine clothes, to eat your fill, to speak and be listened to have people bow when you enter a room. You imagine a life without back-breaking labour, without cracked hands and aching joints, without the constant pressure to keep up, keep quiet, keep going. But then you remind yourself of the truths you have seen, the fears they carry, the games they play, the betrayals they endure. You wonder if you would want their life even if you could have it. You wonder if their silk feels as heavy on their shoulders as your rough tunic does on yours. At the end of the day, you return to your own world, the servants' quarters, the rough straw bed, the cold draught slipping through the stones. You carry with you the images of the nobles' lives, the glimpses you've caught, the small, secret moments you've witnessed. You hold them lightly, not because they change anything, not because they offer you escape, but because they remind you that even behind the walls of privilege and power, people remain. People flawed, frightened, complicated, human. You close your eyes at night, knowing that you will rise tomorrow to serve them again, to stand quietly at the edges of their lives, to carry their burdens, to sweep away the traces they leave behind. But you also know that you carry something they cannot take from you, the knowledge of what lies beneath the surface, the quiet truths hidden behind the glittering facade. And in a place like this, sometimes knowing is the only power you have. Most days in the castle blur together a steady stream of labour, noise, orders, aches, and exhaustion. But every so often, a festival comes, breaking the rhythm like a sudden shaft of sunlight through a thick wall of clouds. You can feel it days beforehand, humming faintly in the air, like the nervous tension before a storm. But this storm brings music, laughter, colour, and, if you are lucky, a rare taste of joy. It starts with the preparations. The banners are brought out from their locked chests, their colours bright against the grey stone, embroidered with the Lord's family crest, their fabric heavy and rich. You help hang them along the great hall, your arms shaking slightly as you stretch upward, careful not to snag or tear the delicate material. The kitchens come alive, louder and hotter than usual, as the cooks bark orders and the servants rush to carry barrels of ale, baskets of fresh vegetables, haunches of meat. You catch glimpses of things you almost never see, honeyed pastries, roasted fowl, stuffed with herbs, bowls of fresh berries, sugared nuts. The smells are intoxicating, filling your nose, making your mouth water, reminding you of everything you usually go without. In the noble quarters, the ladies' maids and chamber servants scurry back and forth, preparing gowns and jewellery, polishing shoes, setting out scented oils and combs. The air fills with the faint, heady perfume of lavender and rose, blending with the sharper tang of wood smoke and sweat. You carry trays, buckets, firewood, doing whatever is asked, moving quietly between the flurry of preparations, feeling the energy gather around you like a rising tide. And then, at last, the day arrives. You stand at the edge of the courtyard, heart beating faster, watching as the nobles emerge in their festival finery. The women shimmer in jewel-toned gowns, their hair twisted into intricate braids, their fingers glittering with rings. The men stand tall in embroidered doublets, their cloaks lined with fur, their boots polished to a gleam. They laugh, they toast, they sweep through the castle as if it belongs entirely to them, and of course, it does. But on days like this, you can almost forgive them. For a few hours, the castle softens. Music fills the air, the bright, quick notes of a lute, the low hum of a drum, the sweet trill of a flute. The musicians set up near the great hall, and their songs ripple outward, weaving through the halls, the courtyards, the kitchens, threading even into the servants' quarters, where you and the others pause to listen. The notes wrap around you like a warm wind, tugging at your feet, tempting you to sway, to tap your fingers, to forget, just for a little while, the ache in your back, the weight on your shoulders. There is laughter, too high, bright, infectious laughter that rises up from the noble tables, from the courtyard dancers, from the children darting underfoot. Even among the servants, there are rare smiles, quick jokes, small bursts of joy. You find yourself laughing with the girl beside you as you watch a clumsy kitchen boy slip on a stray carrot, or grinning as you pass the stable master, who smirks and slips you a handful of sugared almonds when no one's looking. For one day, the castle seems to hold its breath, to loosen its iron grip, to allow something lighter, something sweeter, to creep into its cold, stony heart. And sometimes, only sometimes, you are allowed to taste it. If the nobles are well fed and well pleased, if the steward is feeling generous, if the cooks are in good spirits, you and the other servants are given a few scraps from the festival tables, a slice of rich meat, a hunk of fresh bread, a sticky, sweet pastry that melts on your tongue and makes your heart ache with sudden, desperate pleasure. You savor every bite slowly, holding the taste in your mouth, letting it remind you, if only for a moment, of what life might be like if you were free to choose your own meals, your own joys, your own feasts. Sometimes, at night, after the tables have been cleared and the nobles have stumbled off to their chambers, you and the other servants steal a few quiet moments in the courtyard. The music lingers faintly in the air, the stars sparkle cold and distant overhead, and for a little while you allow yourself to sit, to breathe, to rest. Someone hums a tune under their breath. Someone else tells a small joke, low and quick. You share a crust of bread, a wink, a moment of shared, exhausted triumph. It is not much, but it is yours. You know, of course, that the festival will end, that tomorrow the banners will come down, the music will fade, the kitchens will return to their usual chaos, the nobles will resume their sharp commands and their heavy demands. You know that the lightness, the laughter, the rare taste of sweetness will vanish like smoke, leaving only the same hard stone, the same long hours, the same aching limbs. But even so, you hold on to it. You tuck the memory away like a small treasure, the scent of roasting meat, the flash of candlelight on polished silver, the sound of music drifting through the air, the sharp, bright burst of laughter rising up like a spark in the dark. You remind yourself that even here, even in this place of cold walls and heavy burdens, joy can still slip through the cracks, fleeting, fragile, but real. And when you lie down at night, sore and tired, your body heavy with the labour of the day, you close your eyes and let yourself drift back to those moments. You picture the swirl of the dancers' skirts, the shimmer of the banners in the sunlight, the taste of something sweet and forbidden on your tongue. You let those memories wrap around you like a thin blanket, holding off the cold for just a little while longer. Because sometimes, even the smallest joys are enough to keep you going. You always know when sickness begins to creep through the servants' quarters. It starts with the sounds. First, the soft, muffled coughs in the middle of the night, sharp little bursts that cut through the quiet. Then, the heavier sneezes, the groans of aching joints, the dragging of feet across the cold stone floor. It spreads quickly in a place like this, where dozens of bodies share the same damp air, the same cramped sleeping quarters, the same worn blankets that never dry fully in winter. A chill sets into the bones, a fever burns in the blood, and soon the whole servant body moves slower, speaks quieter, eyes dull, heads bowed lower than usual. But there is no rest, no reprieve. You wake up with a tightness in your chest, a dryness in your throat, a pounding in your skull. The cold air feels sharper against your skin, the weight of your clothes heavier, the ache in your limbs deeper. You know the signs, you've seen them in the faces around you, watched the others work through their own sicknesses, dragging themselves from chore to chore with pale skin and shaking hands. You push yourself to your feet, blinking hard against the wave of dizziness that sweeps over you, gripping the edge of the wooden bunk until the world stops tilting. There is no time to pause, no one to take your place. If you do not show up, the work does not stop, it simply falls on someone else's shoulders, and the anger, the punishments, the sharp words will find you when you return. The steward does not care if you are sick. Neither do the cooks, the stable master, the laundry head, the noble family. You are a body here, a tool, and your body's pain is of no concern unless it interferes with your usefulness. You have seen servants collapse in the kitchens, heads swimming from fever, only to be pulled upright again, handed a new task, told sharply to finish their work before they even think of resting. You have seen pale, shaking hands, lifting buckets, scrubbing stone floors, hauling wood, and you know that this is what is expected of you now. You remind yourself that if you can just keep moving, just keep your head down, you can survive this. But the work feels twice as heavy when you are sick. The buckets seem to pull harder on your arms. The stairs stretch longer, the fires burn hotter, the smells turn sharper and more unbearable. Your stomach churns when you carry platters of meat, the rich grease and spice making you gag quietly behind clenched teeth. Your hands fumble with the laundry, the soap stinging your raw skin until you can barely feel your fingers. Every cough rattles your ribs, sending a sharp pain through your chest. Every breath feels too shallow, too tight. And still, you keep going. Around you, the others do the same. You watch as the maid beside you stifles her coughs into the sleeve of her dress, her face pale and glistening with sweat. You see the stable boy lean heavily on the wall for a moment, his legs trembling, before straightening with a grunt and lifting another saddle onto the rack. No one offers help. No one asks if you are all right. There is no space for kindness. Here only survival. Each person must carry their own burden, no matter how heavy it becomes. When sickness spreads to the nobles, everything sharpens. Suddenly, the castle is full of anxious whispers, tense glances, urgent tasks. You are ordered to bring extra blankets to the Lord's chamber, to fetch herbs and tonics from the healer, to clean and polish everything twice, over to drive out the illness. You watch the nobles from the corners of your eyes, see the paleness in their faces, the unease in their voices, the way they demand more and more comforts to shield themselves from what they cannot control. You feel a flicker of dark, quiet resentment deep inside you, knowing that they will have hot baths, fine medicines, soft beds, while you will have nothing but thin soup and a prayer that your fever does not worsen. There are no doctors for servants, no healers waiting at your bedside. If you are too sick to rise, you are simply left in your bunk, shivering, sweating, drifting in and out of fevered dreams, while the others work around you. Some recover, crawling back to their chores a few days later, thinner and weaker, but still breathing. Others do not. You have seen it happen. A pale face growing paler, shallow breaths growing slower, a stillness that settles too deeply. The body is carried quietly away, without ceremony, without grief. There are no mourners, no markers, no names remembered. Just one fewer body to carry the endless work. You know this, and so you fight to stay on your feet. You push through the ache, the fog, the weakness, telling yourself that you cannot afford to fall. You cannot afford to disappear. You grip your tasks tighter, move slower but steady, breathe through the pain, hoping that no one will notice how your hands shake, how your steps falter, how your eyes blur with exhaustion. You tell yourself that if you can just last another hour, another day, another week, you will pull through. You will survive. And at night, when you finally crawl back into your narrow bed, the fever burning hot in your skin, you lie staring up at the low ceiling, feeling the cold stone press in on every side. You listen to the coughs and sighs of the others, the quiet weeping of someone who knows they will not make it through the night, the soft shuffle of feet as another servant rises early to cover the work of the fallen. You wonder, for a moment, what it would be like to live in a world where someone would bring you medicine, a warm drink, a kind word. But you know better than to waste time on such dreams. Here, in the castle, there is no mercy. There is only the work, the burden, the endless expectation that you will rise each morning and take up your share of the load, no matter how broken your body becomes. And so, even in sickness, you endure, because there is no other choice. You have lived long enough in the castle to know that even stone walls are not immune to change. One day, the word comes quietly, slipping from mouth to mouth, servant to servant, until it reaches you. The old lord is gone. Whether through death, politics, or quiet dismissal, no one dares say aloud, but the message is clear. A new lord is coming. At first, nothing looks different. The great hall stands silent, the banners hang motionless, the torches flicker along the stone walls, just as they did the day before. The servants move through their chores, heads down, hands busy, lips pressed thin. But, under the surface, the tension hums like a tight-drawn bowstring. You feel it in the sharpness of the steward's orders, the stiffness of the senior servants, the sudden burst of extra polishing, extra scrubbing, extra preparation in every corner of the castle. The arrival day comes quickly. You stand at the edge of the courtyard, heart pounding, hands cold and sweaty despite the day's warmth, watching as the new lord's entourage rides through the gate. Horses gleaming, armour shining, fine capes trailing behind them, they sweep in like a storm, all noise and colour and power, and you feel, keenly, how small you are, how little you matter in this moment. You keep your head down, eyes on the ground, but you steal quick glances from beneath your lashes, trying to gauge the faces, the postures, the moods of the people who now hold your life in their hands. Change, in a place like this, is a dangerous thing. You have seen it before. New lords bring new rules, new expectations, new alliances, new punishments. You don't know yet what kind of man this one is. Will he be harsh or fair, cruel or careless, interested in his servants or blind to them? Will he demand stricter discipline, heavier workloads, longer hours? Will he bring new officials, new stewards, new favourites who might rearrange the delicate balance of power among the household staff? Every servant here knows they must move carefully in these first days, learning the new shape of authority, watching the way the new Lord speaks, the way he looks at his men, the way he treats the servants who dare cross his path. There is a kind of collective holding of breath. The steward, sharp-eyed and brisk, gathers the staff to remind them of their duties, their manners, their proper deference. You stand with the others in the great hall, feeling the weight of the cold stone at your back, the light from the tall windows falling in long stripes across the floor. You listen carefully as the steward's voice rises and falls, offering instructions on where to stand, how to bow, what to say if spoken to, what not to say under any circumstances. You sense the unease in the people around you, the quick glances exchanged between the older servants, the nervous fidgeting of the younger ones, the faint quiver in the cook's voice when she whispers to her assistants. You all know what's at stake. A new lord means new risks, new uncertainties, new chances to be noticed in the wrong way. When the lord finally arrives in the hall, you stand perfectly still, your breath tight in your chest, your hands folded carefully in front of you. You steal a glance as he passes tall, sharp-featured, dark-haired, with eyes that sweep over the room like a blade. He barely seems to see you, barely seems to register the line of servants arrayed against the wall, but still you feel the press of his presence, the cold weight of his power settling over the space like a heavy cloak. You know, instinctively, that this is someone to be wary of, someone who will not forgive mistakes, someone who will not tolerate disobedience. In the days that follow, the castle shifts around you. Old officials are dismissed, their rooms emptied in silence. New faces appear in the corridors, their fine clothes and quiet whispers marking them as people of influence. The rules begin to change in small but important ways. The hours lengthen, the punishments tighten, the demands increase. You find yourself working harder, moving faster, thinking more carefully about every word, every gesture, every breath. You are watched more closely now, measured, evaluated, weighed. You know that one misstep could cost you your place, your food, your survival. Among the servants, the social order reshuffles as well. Some who were once powerful fall quickly out of favour, while others rise, attaching themselves to the new power, aligning with the new steward, the new headmaid, the new guard captain. You watch these shifts carefully, understanding that your safety depends not only on doing your job, but on knowing who stands where, who carries weight, who can protect you or harm you with a word. You keep your head low, your ears open, your mouth shut, moving cautiously through this new, treacherous landscape. And yet, despite all the tension, all the uncertainty, there is also something else, something harder to name. Change brings danger, yes, but it also brings possibility. You wonder, late at night, as you lie in your narrow bed, if perhaps this new lord might offer something different, something better. You wonder if he might lift one or two of the servants to a higher position, reward loyalty, recognize hard work. You wonder if the patterns that have locked you into your small, hard life might shift, just a little, offering a new path, a new chance. You tell yourself not to hope too much, not to dream too far, but still the thought lingers, soft and stubborn, in the back of your mind. For now, you focus on survival. You rise early, you work hard, you stay silent, you watch and listen and wait. You feel the weight of the castle shifting around you, the slow, grinding gears of power turning and grinding and reshaping the world you live in. You remind yourself that you have endured before, that you have weathered other storms, other changes, other lords. You tell yourself that you will endure this too. And as you move through the stone corridors, carrying your buckets, scrubbing your floors, serving your masters, you carry with you the quiet knowledge that you are still here, still standing, still watching, still waiting. And sometimes, in a place like this, that is the strongest form of power you can have. Time moves strangely inside the castle. At first, you measure it in chores, how long it takes to scrub the great hall, how many trips you must make to the well before the water jars are full, how many buckets of ash must be carried away before the kitchens can begin again. Then you measure it in seasons, the long, bitter winter days when your fingers crack and bleed from the cold, the heavy, suffocating summer afternoons when sweat pools under your collar and the kitchens feel like furnaces. Then, without quite noticing when it happened, you begin to measure it in years. And the years change you. You didn't think they would at first. You arrived young, strong, your body sturdy, your heart determined, your mind still half filled with the dreams you carried from home. You were going to survive the castle, you told yourself. You were going to rise through the ranks, or save enough to leave, or find some chance, some twist of fate to carry you somewhere better. You looked around at the older servants with their hunched backs, their missing teeth, their weary, beaten down eyes, and you told yourself, I will not become them. I will find a way out. But time, in the castle, is a slow and patient hunter. 1 year becomes 2, 2 become 5. You barely notice the way your body shifts under the weight of the work, the slow rounding of your shoulders, the tightening of your lower back, the faint stiffness in your knees each morning. You barely notice the way your face sharpens, hollows slightly, the way the skin around your eyes begins to crease with tiredness, the way your fingers grow rough and thick with calluses. You catch glimpses of yourself sometimes in the polished edge of a copper pot, in the ripple of water in a bucket, and you pause, frowning faintly at the person staring back. You look older, you realize. Not just from the outside, but from the inside too. You find yourself thinking more often of the life you once imagined. Not because you still believe in it, no, you are no longer that foolish, but because the ache of it lingers, soft and constant, like an old bruise beneath the skin. You remember, dimly, the things you dreamed of before the castle swallowed you, a small home of your own, perhaps, a patch of land, a family, the freedom to walk where you pleased, to work for yourself, to rest when you wished. You remember thinking you would stay here only for a little while, just long enough to save a little coin, just long enough to get your footing, just long enough to move on. But the castle has its own rhythm, its own gravity, and once you are caught inside it, it is hard to break free. One season bleeds into the next, 1 year folds over another, and soon the life you meant to build feels like something that belongs to someone else, someone you left behind. Sometimes, late at night, you lie in your narrow bed and wonder, where would you be now if you had chosen differently? If you had stayed in your village, married young, worked the fields? If you had run away to the city instead, apprenticed yourself to a craftsman, risked the dangers of the road for the chance of a better life? Would you be happier? Would you be freer? Would you still be dreaming of something more? You will never know. The path you chose led you here, to these stone walls, this endless labour, this hard and narrow life. And yet, even in this life, you find small things to hold on to. You remember the faces of the people you've worked beside the old cook, with her sharp tongue but soft eyes, the stable boy who grew into a man beside you, his laughter as bright now as it was when he was 12, the maid who slipped you extra scraps when you were sick, the laundry girl who sang softly as she worked. You remember moments of fleeting triumph lifting a heavy load you thought you couldn't carry, finishing a task in record time, catching a rare, approving nod from the steward. You remember the rare nights when the stars shone clear over the castle walls, when the air felt clean and cool, when for a breath you could look up and imagine a world beyond. You wonder sometimes if this is what life is in the end. Not the dreams you chase, but the moments you gather along the way. Not the future you planned, but the small, quiet triumphs of endurance, of survival, of getting up each day and doing what needs to be done. You know now that you will likely never leave this place. You know that the life you once imagined is gone, that the chances you once hoped for have slipped past you, that the world beyond the castle walls has moved on without you. But you also know that you are still here. You are still standing, still breathing, still working, still surviving. You are part of the castle's long, silent history, one of the many invisible hands that have shaped its days and carried its burdens. You may be forgotten by the nobles, by the lords, by the world beyond these walls, but you will remember yourself. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, you let yourself dream still. Not of escape, not of wealth, not of glory, but simply of a life where you are seen, where you are valued, where your hands are not just tools, but part of something meaningful. You know you may never have that life, but the dream of it warms you in a small, quiet way. And sometimes that is enough. For all the weight the castle presses onto your back, for all the aches, the hunger, the exhaustion, it is not the labour alone that keeps you upright. It is the small things, tiny, fleeting moments of human connection, warmth and quiet, meaning that thread their way through the cracks of your days and remind you why you keep going. It is the way the kitchen maid smiles at you as she passes you a heel of bread, a kindness slipped quietly between chores, no words exchanged, just the soft press of the crust into your hand. It is the way the old cook gives you a look sharp-eyed, but knowing when she sees you struggling under the weight of the woodpile and sends someone younger to help without making a fuss. It's the moment when you and the stable boy share a brief glance of exasperation, both of you rolling your eyes as the steward rattles off another list of demands, a silent exchange that says, "Yes, I see you. Yes, we're in this together." These are not grand, sweeping acts of friendship. No one here has the time or space for that. But these small gestures weave a thin, invisible net around you, a web of quiet support, the sense that even here, even under the castle's crushing expectations, you are not entirely alone. You find meaning, too, in the moments when the world softens, if only for a breath. Early mornings, before the nobles are awake, when you slip through the courtyard carrying water and the dawn light hits the stone walls just so, painting them gold. Or late at night, when the castle is mostly asleep, and you stand at the narrow window outside the servants' quarters, looking up at the stars, the cold night air filling your lungs, the hush of the dark pressing close around you like a secret. These are the moments when you feel something stir inside your chest. Not quite happiness, not quite peace, but something still and deep, something you cannot name. Sometimes you catch it in the work itself. Not often. The tasks are usually too repetitive, too grueling, too draining, but now and then you slip into a rhythm that soothes you. The steady scrape of the broom over the flagstones, the soft slap of wet laundry in the basin, the measured slicing of vegetables in the kitchen. When you fall into these patterns, your mind can drift, your body moving almost on its own, and for a little while the burdens feel lighter. It is not joy, exactly, but it is a kind of quiet endurance, a reminder that you know how to survive this life, that you have carved out a space for yourself in its rough, unforgiving flow. You also find meaning in the rare moments when someone sees you, really sees you. It might be a fellow servant thanking you under their breath for covering a shift. It might be the steward, usually cold and sharp, giving you a brief, approving nod after you finish a difficult task. Once, it was a noble child, a little girl with golden braids, who looked up from her cushion in the great hall and smiled shyly at you as you passed, as if you were more than just a shadow, more than just another pair of hands. That smile stayed with you for days, even though you knew better than to expect it again. And then, there are the small, secret things you carry for yourself, the memories, the thoughts, the scraps of self you refuse to let go of, no matter how much the castle tries to grind them down. A song you hum softly under your breath while scrubbing floors, a piece of string tied around your finger in memory of someone you loved, a quiet prayer whispered as you pass the chapel door. These small, invisible things remind you that you are not just a servant, not just a tool. You are still you, still human, still whole, in ways no master can see or touch. Even the seasons carry their own small meanings. The first hint of spring after a long, brutal winter, a patch of green pushing through the frozen mud, the faint scent of thawing earth in the air, the rich, heavy scent of autumn fires, the way the trees outside the walls turn gold and red before the cold sets in. These little shifts remind you that time is moving, that the world is turning, that nothing stays frozen forever. Sometimes, late at night, when your body is aching and your mind is tired, you let yourself wonder what it's all for. You wonder why you keep going, why you rise each morning, why you bear the endless weight of labor, punishment, and hunger. And in those moments, you remind yourself, you keep going because of the small things. Because even in this life, there are moments of softness, moments of meaning, moments of connection that no one can take from you. You may never own land, may never wear fine clothes, may never sit at the Lord's table, but you have seen the stars from the castle yard. You have shared a joke with the girl beside you at the washtub. You have felt the hush of the great hall at dawn, the golden light spilling across the flagstones. You have carried the castle's burdens, yes, but you have also carried its quiet, hidden beauty. And perhaps, in the end, that is enough. You do not know what tomorrow will bring. Perhaps more hardship, more punishment, more cold. But you know that tomorrow you will rise, you will work, you will find small moments to hold on to, and that, for now, is reason enough to keep moving forward. You stand in the shadow of the castle walls, looking up at the towers that rise sharp and dark against the sky. You have walked these stones for years. You know each curve of the staircase, each worn groove in the floor, each scar in the walls, where time or war or accident has left its mark. You have carried wood across these courtyards, scrubbed these flagstones, polished the ironwork, hauled water from the well. You know the smells of the kitchens, the chill of the halls in winter, the feel of the rushes underfoot, the hush of the chapel at night. And yet you also know deeply, undeniably, that none of this will remember you. The castle's stones have seen generations of servants pass through. Hands like yours built these walls, hauled these beams into place, shaped these floors from rough earth and rock. Voices like yours once echoed in the laundry room, the kitchens, the cellars, the stables, laughter, sighs, cries of exhaustion. Faces like yours, sunburned, work roughened, often overlooked, once bent over buckets and brooms, poured wine at noble tables, bowed silently in the corners. And all of them are gone now, their names lost, their stories faded, their bodies buried far from memory. You know this because you walk past their traces every day. You see the older servants, those who have been here long enough to remember others who are now gone. You see the way they glance toward empty beds in the servants' quarters, the way they pause when passing a place once occupied by someone else, someone whose name no one speaks anymore. You understand, without needing to ask, that one day you too will slip from the memory of this place. One day your bed will be given to someone new. One day your tasks will be handed off to fresher, younger hands. One day you will be gone and the castle will keep turning, unaffected, untouched. And yet, in your quietest moments you wonder, is that really all there is? You think of the fires you have lit, the rooms you have cleaned, the tables you have set. You think of the animals you have cared for, the meals you have prepared, the countless invisible tasks that have kept this place alive and humming through the seasons. You know that without you, without people like you, the castle would crumble into stillness. No one praises you, no one thanks you, but you know in your bones that it is your work that makes this place breathe. Without you, the nobles would go hungry, the guests would shiver in cold chambers, the lord's wealth would gather dust in empty halls. So perhaps your name will not survive. Perhaps your story will fade. But your hands, your sweat, your labour, they are here, etched into the very heart of the castle. They live on in the shining floor you scrubbed each morning, in the warmth of the fire you built each night, in the walls you kept strong and the gardens you tended. You are woven into the castle's fabric, even if no one remembers to say your name. You wonder, sometimes, if the nobles ever think of this. Do they pause, in the middle of a feast, and remember the hands that prepared the food? Do they sit by their warm hearths, and recall the bodies that chopped the wood, that lit the kindling, that cleaned the ash? Do they walk across their polished floors and see, even for a heartbeat, the bent backs, the scraped knees, the calloused fingers that keep their world gleaming? You suspect they do not. And yet, you also suspect that somewhere, deep down, they know. They know they stand on a foundation built by invisible labour, by lives like yours, and Though they may never speak it aloud, they owe you more than they will ever admit. As you move through the castle's corridors, you feel the weight of all the unnamed, unremembered people who have passed this way before you. You feel the quiet strength of their survival, the resilience they passed down to you, the legacy they left behind, not in wealth or fame, but in the enduring, unbreakable rhythm of the castle's life. You know that you walk in their footsteps, just as one day someone will walk in yours. And maybe, just maybe, that is enough. At night, when you step outside into the courtyard and look up at the stars, you feel the vastness of the world pressing gently against your chest. You are one small life in one small corner of a great, turning world. You are a single thread in the tapestry, a single stone in the wall, a single name that may be forgotten, but you were here. You were part of something larger, something enduring, something that will carry on long after you are gone. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the cold night air. You feel the aches in your body, the weight of the years in your bones, the sharp edge of tiredness behind your eyes. And yet, beneath it all, you feel something softer, something steadier, something like quiet pride. You have endured. You have given what you could. You have shaped this place with your hands, your days, your years. When the dawn bell rings tomorrow, you will rise again. You will light the fires, carry the buckets, sweep the floors. You will take your place among the countless others who have kept this castle alive. And you will know, even if no one else does, that you are part of its story, part of the long, invisible chain of lives that built its greatness, held it steady, and carried it through the centuries. And as you turn back toward the servants' quarters, the stars fading slowly into the pale light of morning, you carry with you the quiet knowledge that even the most forgotten life can leave a mark. Even the smallest hands can shape a legacy. Even the most invisible servant can be part of something that endures.